And that's how a player's got to be. Stay kicking game with a capital G. Ask the peoples on my block, I'm as real.
Good afternoon, guys. This is honestly my 5th time trying to tape this. I don't know what the hell's going on with my brain, but something's going on. So, 5 times. 5. Anyways, on the other note, I'd like to thank Jules Ocean for getting me a birthday gift. That was very sweet of you. You did not have to do that, but I really appreciate it. And guys, look at it. Yeah, new background. And that's what's coming up next month. I mean, like, come on, who doesn't want to summon demons? So, anyways, I'm going to be taping the Crazy Things Our Brains Do. I'm pretty sure it's episode 5. Or is it 4? I don't want to look like an idiot here. But I probably already do, so I don't know why I'm even looking. So either the 4th or the 5th episode. I'm really bad with stuff like this. Stop it. Episode 3. Capgrass was 4, right? So yeah, this is the 5th one. I'm just, yeah. Okay. Anyways, Alice in Wonderland syndrome. The symptoms are really weird. And yeah, I think you guys will find this one interesting. So let's start. What is it? So Alice in Wonderland syndrome is a rare neurological disorder that causes temporary episodes of distorted perception and disorientation. AWS is also known as Todd's syndrome. That's because it was first identified in the 1950s by Dr. John Todd, a British psychiatrist. He noted that the symptoms and recorded anecdotes of this syndrome closely resembled episodes of that of the character Alice Liddell experienced in Lewis Carroll's novel Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So how does AWS present? So AWS episodes are different for each person. What someone will experience will vary from one episode to the next. A typical episode lasts a few minutes, but some can last up to half an hour. Okay, so the symptoms. Migraines. So people with AWS are more likely to have migraines. Some researchers and doctors believe AWS is actually an aura. Others believe AWS may be a rare subtype of a migraine. So just in case you don't know what an aura is for like a migraine, I've had one before. It's basically where you see, like, some people see like a bright light, some people get other things, but here, let me just give you a better definition because I'm not the internet. Okay, so a migraine with aura, also called a classic migraine, is a reoccurring headache that strikes after or at the same time as sensory disturbances called aura. These disturbances can include flashes of light, blind spots, and other vision changes or tingling in your hand or face. Oh, so when my face went numb, that was probably what happened. Yeah, the only time I've had a migraine was really, really scary, actually. I was at my friend's house, and I felt like I had to throw up, so I went in the bathroom, I turned off the light, and literally half my face was numb. So when I told my mom, she was like, "Are you sure that wasn't a stroke?" Yeah, no, it wasn't. Just the migraine. Okay, this one's really interesting. The other symptom is size distortion. So micropsia is the sensation that your body or objects around you are growing smaller. Macropsia is a sensation that your body or objects around you are growing larger. Both are common experiences during an AWS episode. Perceptual distortion. So if you feel that objects near you are growing larger or they are closer to you than they really are, you're experiencing Micropsia. The opposite is Micropsia. It's a sensation that objects are getting smaller or farther away from you than they really are. There's also time distortion. So some people with AWS lose their sense of time. They may feel like time is moving faster or slower than it really is. And finally, sound distortion. So every sound, even quiet sounds, seem loud and intrusive. Oh, this one sounds great. So, loss of limb control or loss of coordination. So this symptom occurs when muscles feel as if they're acting involuntarily. In other words, you may feel as though you're not controlling your limbs. Likewise, the altered sense of reality can affect how you move or walk. You may feel uncoordinated or have difficulty moving about as you normally would. Okay, causes. Like pretty much everything else that I have done on this on my channel with like mental illness and everything else that goes with it, they don't really know. The cause is unclear. So what doctors and researchers do know is that AWS is not a problem with your eyes, a hallucination, or a mental or neurological illness. Researchers believe unusual electrical activity in the brain causes abnormal blood flow to the parts of your brain that process your environment and experience visual perception. So this unusual electrical activity may be the result of several causes. One study found that 33% of people who experienced AWS had infections. Both head trauma and migraines were tied to 6% of AWS episodes, but more than half of AWS cases have no known causes. So, although more research is needed, migraine is considered the leading cause for AWS in adults. Infections is considered the primary case for AWS in children. Other possible causes could include stress, cough medicine, so don't be drinking that a lot. Use of hallucinogenic drugs, epilepsy, stroke, or a brain tumor. Diagnosis. You will get an MRI scan. They might do an EEG, which measures the electrical activity of the brain. Blood tests. Your doctors can rule out or diagnose viruses or infections. that could be causing AWS, such as EBV or Epstein-Barr virus, guys. Treatment. There is no treatment. The best way to handle symptoms is to rest and wait for them to pass. Treating what you and your doctors suspect is the underlying cause for AWS episodes may help prevent an episode. If it is suspected to be from stress, I love this because this doesn't work for me. Trying meditation and relaxation can reduce symptoms. Okay, so I did find like a short story. It's by the New York Times. And it says, I had Alice in Wonderland syndrome. So a few months ago, my 10-year-old daughter Paulina was suffering from a bad headache right before bedtime. She went to lie down and I sat beside her stroking her head. After a few minutes, she looked up at me and said, "Everything in the room looks really small." And I suddenly remembered when I was young, I too would see things far away, as I once described it to my mother, as if everything in the room were at the wrong end of a telescope. The episodes could last anywhere from a few minutes to an hour, but they eventually faded as I grew older. I asked Paulina if this was her first time she had experienced such a thing. She shook her head and said it happened every now and then. When I was a little girl, I told her it would happen to me and when I had a fever or I was nervous. I told her not to worry and that it would go away on its own. Soon she fell asleep and I ran straight to my computer. Within minutes, I discovered that there was an actual name for what turns out to be a very rare affliction, Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Episodes usually include Micropsia, as I said earlier, objects appear small, or Micropsia. Sorry guys. Objects appear larger. Some sufferers perceive their own body parts to be larger or smaller. For me and Paulina, furniture a few feet away seemed small enough to fit inside a dollhouse. Dr. John Todd, a British psychiatrist, gave the disorder its name in a 1955 paper, noting that the misperceptions resemble Lewis Carroll's descriptions of what happened to Alice. It's also known as Todd's syndrome. Having had it myself, I had a sense it wasn't dangerous, but I wanted to know more. I contacted several neurologists who work with the syndrome I found online and learned more about its possible triggers. Infections, migraine, stress and drugs, particularly some cough medicines. Epilepsy and stroke were sometimes linked as well, the researchers said. Some even believe that Lewis Carroll, who described his migraines in his journal, may have suffered from it. Alice in Wonderland syndrome is not an optical problem or a hallucination. And instead, it is most likely caused by a change in portions of the brain, likely the parietal lobe. That processes perceptions of the environment. So, some specialists consider it a type of aura, a sensory warning preceding a migraine. And the doctors confirmed that it usually goes away by adulthood. Several neurologists have done MRIs on patients with the condition, though once the bout has passed, there's usually no sign of unusual brain activity. Dr. Sheena Arora, a Stanford neurologist and migraine specialist, was the first to scan the brain of someone, a 12-year-old girl, in the middle of an episode. According to Dr. Arora's 2008 report, electrical activity caused abnormal blood flow in the parts of the brain that control vision and process texture, shape, and size. The brain of someone with Alice in Wonderland syndrome is just a little bit different from those with other auras. Dr. Aurora hopes to develop a database of patients with other doctors so they can study the condition and other migraine-related auras. Out of the 25,000 patients she has worked with, I was only the third person she has ever spoken to with the syndrome. She asked for a family tree denoting which relatives had experienced it, so she could perform genetic testing to search for a link. Sometimes, she said, one single case can change the way we understand things. I soon discovered my 14-year-old son, Dean, had had episodes for years, though he had never mentioned it to me until I brought it up. He recently began suffering from migraines. I learned that my mother experienced the syndrome as a girl. Her symptoms were so bad that sometimes she couldn't walk. My sister, a migraine sufferer, had experienced it as a child, as had my brother. So basically the whole family had experienced it as a child, as had my brother, who remembered having it during a bout of mononucleosis, which is sometimes caused by Epstein-Barr virus, another known syndrome trigger. Holy, I was right. Her whole family basically has it. My first cousin Jamie said she had it into her 20s at a time of great stress in her life. Dr. Aurora was fascinated to learn of so many people in one family being affected. Yeah, I'm fascinated to learn that so many people have it too. The condition is considered so rare that there have only been a few studies of it. Dr. Grant Liu, a pediatric wow. I used to be able to say big words like this. Neuro-ophthalmologist. Wow, that's quite a name. At the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, said his research into the syndrome shows that even small changes to the brain can yield dramatic effects. When those areas involved are determining size, shape, and distance malfunction, he said, the resulting visual experience can be extraordinary. So Dr. Liu recently examined and interviewed 48 patients, all of them who had the syndrome as children between 1993 and 2013. 33% of the cases were traced to some sort of infection, 6% to migraine, and another 6% to head trauma. About half the cases, however, no cause was found. So a quarter of the subjects with no migraine history eventually developed migraines. Jeez. Dr. Liu also found, in addition, 40% were still experiencing symptoms. Dr. Liu said it took time for family members of those studied to admit they too had the syndrome, which leads him to believe that it may be more widespread than people think. A lot of family members didn't own up to it on the first go-around, said Dr. Liu. They were almost too embarrassed. People want to be told that they're not crazy. Okay, so that was a particularly long one. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time. I still have to do the I cannot speak today. Agoraphobia video. Anyways, I'm gonna go. So, bye.
Hey, off the juice, coding got me tripping.